Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. I couldn't do it without him. He could probably do it without me, although he's just kind enough not to ever admit it. If you've never caught up with the podcast before, each week we choose a comedy programme to watch or listen to or to just rub all over. No, actually, it's just watching and listening to. I don't know where I got that one from. And then we reconvene and we chat about it. We tell you the bits that we like, the bits that we thought maybe could have been changed. We try not to be too negative, don't we, Adrian? We don't tend to have the bits that we don't like.
But having said that, occasionally we are more negative than we mean to be.
I'm not. I mean to be more negative, and you always rein me back in every week in, week out.
I wasn't going to put it like that. I am good cop to your bad, malevolent, evil cop.
Tell me what you know before I slap you silly. And then he holds me back and goes, leave it, Shane, he ain't worth it. Think of your pension. We give the show in question a mark out of 5 each, giving it a grand total out of 10. We'll play a couple of clips as well to give you a bit of a flavour for the show that we're talking about. We'll also provide links and bits of information in the description of where you can actually go and avail yourself of the said comedy if that's something that you want to do. It was my turn to choose last week for this week, but before we get on to that, a few bits of business to take care of. First of all, not least the sad passing of Bobby Ball this week. It's really was quite sad. It seemed to hit a lot of people. Yeah. I think they were more a part of the British consciousness than we seem to realise, don't you think?
Well, I think, yeah, they sort of wheedled their way in. And Bobby Bull, of course, had a resurgence towards what obviously transpired, sadly, to be the end of his life. But I was tempted to say serious acting. It's not serious acting, but less sort of muck about. Well, not part of the Cannonball double act, but I'm thinking of playing the father in... Not Going Out.
Brilliantly as well, I might say. I think
absolutely, with a glint in the eye. And he stole the show in some scenes, didn't he?
Yeah.
In a nice way.
The only reason I think there weren't any plaudits, I mean, this is what journalism now, their first line of defence is not to actually speak to anybody, but to say so-and-so paid tribute to them because they've just read it on their Twitter feed. But of course, famously, I think you probably know, that Lee Mack I think he opened an account just to stop anyone else opening a Lee Mack account.
Or does he never tweet, you mean?
No, I don't think he's a fan of social media in any form, really. Which is fair enough, isn't it? I quite admire him for that, for sticking out of it. My wife actually worked with Cannonball in Panto when she was a kid.
Oh, wow. Do tell.
Well, I think that's pretty well. I mean, she it's funny, actually, because the bigger impact, she found that she was just like reading articles and stuff like that, you know, because having known the guy, and you know, there was a lovely photo actually she tweeted out this week of her having a cuddle from Bobby Ball backstage, you know, and the kids always used to, whoever the star was, you know, was it Danny LaRue or Les Dawson or whoever it was she was working with, Bernie Winters was another one, always used to sign their programmes for them, you know, and give them a sort of memento. She's kept all that stuff. But the interesting thing was that the biggest influence on her was she said, oh God, I forgot they'd got a theme tune. They had their own song, didn't they, that they used to sing at the end of their show, their Saturday night show.
Gosh, well, I don't remember that, if I'm
honest. It
was
good, and that was their theme tune. And she said, oh, do you remember this? She said, oh, this takes me right back to Saturday night TV. So they were massive when she was a kid. They were the Anton Deck, weren't they, I suppose, really, in today's terms.
Yeah. Well, it made you want for him to have done more acting, really. And was there something, I just couldn't get my head around it. He plays someone else's dad in something I've seen recently.
The Cockfields, wasn't it the one that we slabbed recently?
That's it. Well, not that recently, but...
It was a 3-parter on Sky, wasn't it?
Yes. Ah, right, that's unriddled it for me, thank you.
God, you're right. It was episode 73 and we're on 119 now. 19. So it was quite a while ago. Seems like only yesterday, mate.
Just the day before yesterday.
Yeah, he was. Do you know, and I said to Angelina, my wife, I said, I always loved, they did a film, they only did one film together, didn't they? The Boys in Blue. Do you remember it? In the 80s, I think it was.
No, I heard it in the obits being mentioned, but I don't remember it. No,
Which
didn't see it.
they played two coppers, and hilarity ensues, as it were. But and I said, the interesting thing is that because, and I don't mean this, it's difficult to say it in a nice way and not sound like I'm being disparaging, because I'm not, but because the Morecambe and Wise films weren't that great, they were on the kind of same level as the Morecambe and Wise films. Was it the Riviera Touch, and there was another one they did as well, wasn't there, I think? And I always loved it. I always thought it was a really great, gentle knockabout comedy movie. I always wondered why it didn't get the attention that it deserved at the time. I thought it was quite good and quite funny. But yeah, he did do a bit. But so it's always sad, isn't it, when we lose, part of the comedy landscape, isn't it, in a way? The comedy history, I suppose.
Yeah, but also quite telling at this time of the pandemic. It was COVID-19 for him, and for Eddie Large, and also for Tim Brooke-Taylor, I believe.
Although they say that, but it transpired that he was actually suffering from COPD, wasn't he?
All right, I hadn't heard that.
He'd got a heart and respiratory. Yeah, he'd got an ongoing long-term heart and respiratory problem. But if you test positive for COVID, then they put it on the death certificate now, which is ludicrous in my opinion. But there you go. So who knows?
But it was part of the unfortunately the mix that was his demise.
Yeah. Anyway, God bless you. We'll raise a glass to you, Bobby Ball.
Oh, absolutely.
I had a laugh with Angelina anyway, because she said, "Oh, because that wasn't their real name." I said, "You know what? Well, I thought it was a stroke of luck that they'd met."
That and Little and Large. Next, you'll be telling me they weren't really called that. Or that Eric Morecambe coming from Morecambe was not coincidence.
So, what was your name? Said Bobby Ball. What's yours? Tommy Cannon. We should start a double act. What are the chances of that?
We could be Tommy and Eddie.
We could be Tommy and Bobby.
Bobby. So I've confused the two double acts.
Mitchell and Webb do something like that, don't they? With somebody Pin and somebody Chip.
Right.
And they start a double act called Pin and Chip.
I wonder how well that will travel through time, that joke.
Yeah, Pin and Chip. I love it. Anyway, it's got some comedy news as well. What you spotted?
Well, it's sad it's another demise, although happily the person is still with us, so he will, I trust, go on to make other things. Spencer Jones, who we absolutely loved, separately and togetherly in Prompt.
Herbert
Clunkerdunk. Thank you,
Clunkerdunk.
but I've got a clunkerdunky memory today, having been up all hours. Which I may even still be on iPlayer. I had a feeling it had a long shelf life. But his series, Mr. Winner, hasn't gone to the fabled Alan Partridge second series.
Oh, that's a shame.
Which is a shame.
I mean, he's one of these. You see, the Mr. Winner, apparently, I've read somewhere, was a toned-down version of Herbert Clunkerdunk. But I'm not. I mean, we really enjoyed that. And I know it was only short form. It was like 15-minute episodes. But we both really enjoyed that and felt it was so fresh and so new, didn't we? That you do kind of wonder whether did we need a watered-down version, or did we just need to do more of that?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? And I wonder if the thinking was, if only we could dilute this, we can make it big time and big ratings, BBC One perhaps, centrepiece. Yeah. And it just goes to show that if you meddle with something, I don't know. I mean, there could be all kinds of stuff going on, calculations and politics we're not aware of and all kinds of things. But I hope it's, I can't imagine with his talent and his track record that that's going to be the last we see of him. That absolutely shouldn't be the case.
No. You're listening, Channel 4. Time for you to step in, I think. I've got to mention this because I saw this on Facebook and I thought of you instantly. Somebody put, finally, an alert system that I understand. The Dad's Army COVID alert system. Tier 1 is Warden Hodges saying, put that mask on. Tier 2 is Corporal Jones shouting, don't panic. And Tier 3 is Fraser going, we're all doomed.
Very nice. Very nice.
Right, on with the show then, on with the podcast and the show that we dragged out for the Slab for this week, for episode 119 of the Comedy Slab, is Afterlife, Ricky Gervais's Afterlife. And I have to say, it is Ricky Gervais's all over, isn't it? Because it's written and directed by him as well.
Yep.
Which you think, well, with his talent, why not? Because he quite clearly has the ability to do that. And what can I tell you about this? It's one of these. Well, I struggle to describe it, and I always fall back to that easy phrase, bittersweet. But it's so much more than that, isn't it? It's dark, dismal, brutal, with a bit of comedy thrown in.
Are you trying to wheedle out of me before we've heard the first clip my views on it?
No, sorry, no.
Wheedle.
No, I'm not
wheedle-free
wheedling.
zone.
I'm not. I wouldn't dare to wheedle at this stage in the podcast. No, I'm just thinking how you would do. I mean, because it is so much more than just. It isn't a bittersweet comedy, is it? You know,
It could be described. I don't know, black comedy drama.
Yeah, I think that's
dark comedy drama.
And even that's putting it quite lightly. I'd forgotten just quite how dark it was. I've not really got past the first series with this, but more of that a little bit later on. Shall we head towards a clip? And I think because that kind of does a lot of the explaining, apart from to tell you that the main character played by Ricky Gervais, the main character called Tony, has lost his wife, Lisa, played by Kerry Godliman, and you do see his wife because she's left behind a video diary that he keeps going back to and watching. But he's lost his wife to cancer, and he's really, really struggling to get his life to any kind of sense of normality or meaning, or I don't know, any idea of going on with his own life, I think is fair to say. And normally I kind of go in quite from the start, but I thought I won't actually, because there's a lovely exchange with his boss, which we'll hear a little bit later on. But the first exchange, I thought, God, you know, we can't have it's all pretty dark. I'm trying to find something that was quite light or a little bit lighter, and kind of explained in a scene how he feels. And so we see him we see Tony through his morning routine, and also having a look back at the video diary that's been left by his late wife Lisa, and going through his morning routine, getting ready for work, starting his day. That's intercut with the town where he's living and working, starting to wake up as well. So after this long and laboured attempt to try and get ready to face the day, he finally leaves the house, and he bumps into his postman, who tries to hand him his mail.
There you go.
What?
It's your post.
Put it to the door.
Well, you're here, so it saves me a trip.
I don't want to walk with it, do I?
Why not?
You're new, aren't you?
Yeah, I was transferred.
No, I don't care. But presumably in your old round, you used to put things through the door, didn't you?
Mate, there's no need to get all leery.
Why are you talking to me like this?
What, are you going to report me?
Yeah. What's your name?
Your law.
Trust me.
It's Pat.
Postman Pat.
Yeah.
Put it to the door. That was easy, wasn't it?
You could have done that.
No, I couldn't.
Why not?
I'm not a postman. Go on.
Good delivery from a postman, you could say.
Oh, any more and you're going to get the sack.
Oh, steady on. Actually, I know this is a banned item that we dropped months ago, but I'm tempted to resurrect. What do you think I make of it? If you had to guess.
What do I think you make of it? I think kind of middling for you. I think you the darkness. There's too much darkness, not enough comedy. And I think because of that, I think you think the comedy overshadows and is it really a comedy? That's what I think. You think?
You mean the dark overshadows the comedy?
Is that what I said? What did I say?
Well, you sort of reversed it, but hey, we knew what you meant. Unless you were being literally ironic.
No, the darkness overshadows it and doesn't leave any room for the. Is what I think. I think that you kind of think it ruins it a bit.
Well, if I was to tell you my headline, if you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the title of the show, Afterlife, is actually 2 words, not 1 word. And so I'm coming back with a 2-word headline rejoinder, which is Living Death.
I was right then.
It's a bit upbeat, isn't it? So, yes, it hurts me to say you were right. But you clearly have started to fathom the mind of Adrian Clunkerdunk after all these episodes, 119 of them.
Adrian's clunky dunky mind, yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough me being a Unitarian, normally only watching 1 episode and thinking of a series and thinking I've got it. You can imagine I didn't have any impetus after this. It is so downbeat. There are of course occasional shafts of light, and I guess if there's one thing that would make me watch on, it's the fact it's Ricky Gervais, and I guess he knows that, and so he's directed it saying, I can afford to do this because I won't lose people, in their droves. I'm Ricky Gervais, and they'll trust me. Most people would trust me to pull it round. Doesn't mean it's going to go skipping and hop, skip and a jump into a happy clappy ending. Although I was thinking about it, discussing this with my girlfriend earlier, as part of my researches, and I reminded myself in the course of the conversation, of course, the Office ended on quite an upbeat note, really. Dawn leaving that brute of a guy and pursuing her love of art. That's saying take risks, isn't it? Go with your heart. It's not a life is useless and abandon hope, all ye who enter here. But episode 1 of Afterlife is more in that camp.
Did you not? You didn't come away from it with any sense of lightness to it at all? Because I did. I came away kind of thinking it's weird actually. To me, there's an honesty there, that there's a realism in that honesty that you feel. I mean, I feel, I don't know whether you do or whether everybody does, but I certainly came away feeling that I had an understanding, and it felt real, and I felt like I could react like that in that situation. That would be plausible, and so that kind of gave it something that not every comedy has.
Can I throw something in response to that? I mean, I largely I believe in that, but before I forget, which is the real danger, Paul Kay, fantastic to see him on screen again. Penis Dennis, as was. And it hasn't been on our screens enough, and he is a genuinely funny guy. But that I found an absolute handbrake turn in terms of going from a supposed, what you're talking about, a believability, a credibility, a relatability, reality, I could go on. Paul Kay, as well, he's credited as a psychiatrist in IMDb. He's actually a psychotherapist, I would say.
Yeah.
That's not a psychiatrist role. Utterly, utterly unbelievable. Unless you just say, oh, it's a dude pretending to be a psychotherapist who is going completely off script because he's, he'd be struck off if that was reported. He just behaved totally unprofessionally, and for me, totally unbelievably.
Right.
Did you not find that about that exchange?
Only because not as much as you did. I mean, I didn't. I understand what you're saying, and I kind of think there is definitely some merit in what you're saying there, but only because I know somebody who had depression, and the first person that they went to was just awful, and they were just a therapist. And it was one of the talking therapies. I forget which one it was, but they were just appalling, just so bad. And the person ended up having to go to somebody else, and they found somebody that was absolutely great then. So I kind of got experience of people. I mean, not they were bad, they weren't inappropriate. And I think you're right, that crosses a line where he's inappropriate, but he does, that's his shtick, isn't it, really? Paul Kay, he plays that kind of, he's always played the person, as you said, with even with Dennis Pennis, it was the kind of out there guy, that's what he's stock in trade. Remember we saw him in Zapped eons ago that we
oh
Slab.
Gosh, yeah, in the early days of the Slab.
And he's all bad teeth and starey eyes and a little bit crazy and I mean, it wasn't a big thing. I mean, in terms of the scene, what was it, a minute out of the whole episode?
Maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, certainly not a long scene.
No. And we didn't go back to it, did we? And I kind of, I wouldn't disagree with you on that one. I think that could have ended up on the cutting room floor, but probably didn't because it was Paul Kay.
Yeah, but he could have played so much better characters given the chance. But, he was given what he was given, in my view.
Yeah, and the casting is quite interesting. I do wonder, when you look at the people that appeared in this, and, you've got a roll call like Paul Kay, Joe Wilkinson, David Bradley playing his Ricky Gervais's dad.
Funny, sorry, just to cut in on Joe Wilkinson, of course, in the Cockfields, we've just been talking about Bobby Ball.
Yes.
His soul.
Yeah.
So
he was more or less the lead in that, wasn't he, Joe Wilkinson?
Absolutely, yeah. Medway lad as well, from Gillingham, born in Gillingham.
He plays a really great role, doesn't he? I've not seen him in anything where he's bombed so far yet, so, more power to his elbow. But you've got Roisin Connerty, Penelope Wilton, Ashley Jensen, who we worked with in Extras, Diane Morgan, Philomena Kunk, Tom Basden's in there.
Your mate.
Colin Holt's in the series somewhere. Peter Egan.
Oh wow!
There's just great, and I do wonder whether they kind of draw. Do you want to work in this thing with Ricky Gervais? And they're like a shot. Do you know what I mean? Because you would.
Well, yeah, you're not going to say no, are you?
No. So, because of that, then, do you then have the problem of, you've got to write all these people in and their parts have got to be commensurate with their talents and abilities?
Are you suggesting it's done in that order? That he gets a yes from the actor first without having written their role yet?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think in... what was the thing that he had in Extras when he had Bowie? I don't think he thought, right, I'm going to sit down and write an episode with David Bowie in it.
Well, we know, I mean, that's a slight side issue, but we know he was a massive Bowie fan, wasn't he? And there's a Channel 4 show, I think you linked me to, from pre-Office days, where he was dressed as Ziggy. Ziggy Stardust in The Office or so.
No, it was Aladdin Sane, actually, wasn't it?
Sorry, I'm not a Bowie specialist.
It's Aladdin Sane, where he's got the thunderbolt across his face. Yeah. He dresses up as him, but no, I don't know. I just throw it out there. It's a small thing, really. But so the problem is, and this is where we can't get out from underneath the shadow of the darkness. And I get what you mean. And I must admit, I mean, I'm the biggest ninny that I know. And I mean, I said to Angelina that we were going to do this, and she said, "Is that a good idea?" Knowing what I'm like. And I said, yeah.
Well, how dark your worldview is.
Well, how upset I get by things. And, and and it's not been a great 18 months, 2 years for us. We've had losses in the family and that, and you kind of think, okay, all right, come on, buckle down. And I thought, no, I'll be fine. And I was doing really well until 5 minutes and 10 seconds in when his dog went and sat on his late wife's grave, and you thought, "Oh God, I can't deal with this."
Did the taps go on by any chance?
Oh man, I was in bits. Yeah, I found it. I had to stop it a few times. I don't mind admitting to just kind of get back on track with it all, really. But then you've got characters like his boss, who's also his brother-in-law, played by Tom Basden, who I think plays the role beautifully. Who, as they all admit, he's this wonderful, really nice guy. Well, you won't do anything, he said to me, because you're such a really nice guy. There's that. But he is, and he's so... Everyone around him is as lost as he is, but they're all trying to help him now.
Although his brother-in-law, this Tom Basden character, who's the editor of the local rag, free advertiser type paper, Matt, he's also... Yeah, I take your point. It does sort of threaten the Ricky Gervais character called Tony with the sack, but then the comeback is, but you won't do it, will you?
But didn't you get any sense of that's the lightness, that's the beautiful side of it, is when you look underneath this darkness, that you turn it over and you see how wonderful people can be, and how everybody, and most people around him are trying to help him and to do what they can for him and to try and understand what he's going through. But because they can't, because you can't, because nobody can, because only he can experience his own feelings.
Well, as he says, the one thing that would sort me out is for my wife to come back, and that's not going to happen. And that is the hideous reality of loss, isn't it? But isn't there more cynicism than you're, as it were, giving Tony credit for? Because, or Ricky Gervais indeed, writing this, that Tom Basden's nice guy is at a, well, what seems to be an inconsequential local paper. Although even that, there's the hint of a melting of the ice in Tony's heart, isn't there? When he's out on a story which he thinks is totally insignificant. I don't want to give too much away, but might not be as insignificant as he originally thinks. And basically, he thinks this advertiser's just being used to line cat litter trays for elderly people.
Yeah. There's a wonderful scene, isn't there, where they go through, and I thought it seemed to me like it was very reminiscent of Alan Partridge doing his programme ideas, where they're talking about some of the stories that they've been trying to chase up. And they said, yeah, remember there was a guy who had a potato that looked like Lionel Richie.
Now I'm laughing. I wasn't laughing then.
And he says, what else have you got? He said, well, there's a woman who says that when she drags her dustbins out, it sounds like Chewbacca. which immediately put me in mind of, because the house that we live in now, we've got some blinds on the back of the house that are on a patio door, and whenever I close them, they're like, you know, those vertical blinds that you just pull the string. And whenever I close them, they always remind me of the TARDIS. So,
well, I retweeted something where someone's squeaky gate gave out a little tune. I can't remember what it was now, but it was.
That's right. I remember you saying about that. Yeah.
I don't know if that wasn't Chewbacca, but it was something like, it sounded like Tarzan's or something like that. It's just so ridiculous, but it was so on the money that you just laughed out loud.
And then they said there was a woman who, they were trying another story, the woman who woke up Chinese, and then there's like this pause, and he said, she wasn't before. And he goes, no, I get the angle. I just think it's a rubbish story. And so that took them on to the man who got sent the same birthday card 5 times, which is the guy that they went out to, didn't they? And
you've ruined that's a spoiler alert.
Oh, I don't think so. It's hardly a plot point, is it, really?
Well, I was trying to pick it up. But the music tells you that actually, that hints, the timing of the music as the old boy's talking about the 5 cards. And I'm not going to ruin the entire scene, even though you appear to want to. For people who haven't seen it, they should see it themselves. And, of course, make their own mind up. We don't tell anyone how to think, but I might tell you, because you're totally wrong most of the time. But easy on the drink, lad. But the music says, it hints, right, there's more to Tony than meets the eye. He's not a complete brute. And his heart is not so hard in his loss of his wife that he can't show some empathy for others.
You see,
and the clue is also in the video. Sorry, I'll just finish this point very quickly. Kerry Godliman, who we both like, you particularly, I think, but she is very strong and very talented and an all-rounder. She says how she, in the video, which of course we're only seeing posthumously, she says how she loves Tony, the Ricky Gervais character. So, and if she can, and we feel some warmth to her, you can't not warm to her. And the way she delivers things and almost the ordinariness of what she's talking about. You know, don't forget to put the bins out on Thursday, whatever it is. That you think, well, if she likes him or loves him, and can also call him a fat so-and-so, then there has to be something redeeming in the Tony character, doesn't there?
Well, it's interesting because she uses language like that, doesn't she? And she's saying, you know, you're the nicest person that I know, and you've got a good heart, and it almost harks back to the character that he was before he lost her. And I find it quite fascinating that you seem as brutal and whatever the other words you describe, whereas I don't. I see him as really quite vulnerable, and I don't want to ruin it because I don't know if it's in the other clip that we're going to play, so I don't want to go into it too much. But
well, you chose the clip. You should remember.
Do you know what? I've been to bed since then, though. I don't know what I did yesterday.
All right.
But I just don't see him as a brutal character at all. I see him as somebody. I really feel for him. I'm really rooting for him, and the release of him being able to say exactly what he wants to say whenever he wants to say it. I think to me, I kind of think, oh yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all be like that. But of course you can't, because on the end of that is somebody being hurt.
Well, and yeah, the person hurting them, the Tony type character, they've kind of switched off an empathy, but you suspect you've got to have an empathy to switch off before you can switch it off.
And he's no better off for it, is he? It's not him being horrible.
Well, it's not exactly cheering him up, is it?
No. And that's the point, isn't it? Is that he's really vile to the character Lenny, who's the photographer on the newspaper, played by the fabulous Tony Way. I always think he's just awesome whenever I see him in anything.
But he's so deadpan.
He always plays the slow, deadpan kind of big lumbering kind of character, doesn't he? You'd know him if you might not know the name, but you'd know his face certainly. But as horrible as he is to him, it still doesn't help Ricky Gervais's character Tony, does it? He doesn't feel any better for having hurt this guy or being horrible to him. And in actual fact, he kind of doesn't mind, because he thinks he's helping him by taking it.
The Tony Way character thinks he's helping him.
Yeah, in the office at one point, he says, she said, "Don't you mind him talking to you like that?" And he went, "No," he said, I forget what he says, something like, "I don't."
Oh, he's a mate.
He's a mate, yeah.
He's
a mate, yeah. He just sees it as banter, and that's the thing, is that not everybody is offended as we are. I find it all fascinating. Anyway, should we have another clip? Because
just before we do, dare I ask, if there's time, who do you think Tony reminds me of?
The Ricky Gervais character, Tony.
A big popular culture figure. I won't take ages on this. You may not get it, but not an actor. That's your clue. But a popular culture figure. Just reminds me of John Lennon and the biting sarcasm. And then, when I first heard it, I wouldn't have known his backstory. But then you find out his mum gave him up to his aunt Mimi. Then his mum got killed in a horrible road accident. And so when you see him do the, that sort of quasi sort of thing that you would get sacked for these days, mimicking a disabled person clapping. You remember that at the microphone, I think, when they're in the States?
I used to do that a lot.
Yeah. And you think he just doesn't care, does he?
No.
And these people out there are nothing to him. But what he's done is he's tried to shut down the pain, I think. And then eventually he opens up with songs like Mother, sings a line which is heartbreaking if you know his history. Mother, you had me, I didn't have you. I mean, it doesn't get more vulnerable than that, does it?
No, I never even connected. But yeah, it is a quite an interesting observation.
Thank you. Where's the digression? Did I justify that?
Well worth it. I mean, like I say though, I just find it fascinating, your take on it and my take on it, and how. I never saw him as. I never thought, that's brutal, because of the context of where he was. It doesn't make it right, and it doesn't excuse it, but because it had all been explained to you so succinctly, you kind of come away almost a bit like Lenny does. You kind of excuse it, and think, oh well, like everyone else is excusing it. Yeah. Another clip then. Tony's behaviour is, as we've discovered very quickly as he goes into work, it's just as bad as at work as it is everywhere else, whether he's in the street or whether he's out in somebody else's home. He doesn't care. He has no feelings anymore, almost. And this is as much a frustration to his boss, who's his brother-in-law, and as we mentioned, played by Tom Basner, as I think I've mentioned, I'm also a big fan of.
I think you might have mentioned that in virtually every episode of The Slab.
So his brother-in-law and his boss is this guy Matt, and he finds out that trying to reprimand Tony is just as difficult as it is to work with him.
What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry and I'll butt my ideas up? Because I won't, because there's no point.
Look, Tony, I know that you've had issues, since you lost Lisa.
Do you reckon? My wife dying affected me a bit.
Of course, and, I get that. I even told Sandy about it.
Who's Sandy?
The new girl. I didn't want her thinking this place was a madhouse. I had to say something. Look, I just need a bit of professionalism around here, okay, Tony? Please? No. I shouldn't have to explain this to you. You can't just go around being rude to people.
You can, though. That's the beauty of it. There's no advantage to being nice and thoughtful and caring and having integrity. It's a disadvantage, if anything.
Well, let's see, because, if you carry on like this, I might have to let you go.
No, you won't. You won't, that's what I'm saying, because you're a nice bloke. So I'll take advantage of you, like everyone else does here. You'll warn me, I'll ignore it. You'll give me another warning, I'll ignore it. I'll carry on doing what the I want. Eventually you'll give up and I'll win. The girls here have discovered that you won't even question women's problems. Kath's had 3 periods this month. She likes Fridays off. You do nothing. She gets away with it.
I nearly tittered at the thought of 3 periods in a month, although it can't be that funny if you actually did have that. But nearly is the word. I don't think I laughed once in the entire show, certainly not when I was watching it on me. In the first viewing, actually, with my girlfriend. But I was only sort of half laughing when you were laughing along with the clips. For instance, the previous clip, Postman Pat. But I think I was so in the misery of the Tony character. I'm with your wife, you know. Should we seriously be putting this on the slab? But hey, there has to be redemption in it, as I was sort of hinting at. But just I don't get enough nuggets from the first episode. This is series 1, episode 1, of course. And we should just say it is a Derek production. What's it? Derek Productions Limited.
Yeah.
For Netflix. We'll get on to Derek in just a sec. But there's just not enough incentive to stick with it, even though I have got a lot of respect for Ricky Gervais. And I mean, he's a man who's really ploughed his own furrow and he really seems to have made the most of his break with The Office. No one could accuse him of idling, could they?
No, not at all. It is fascinating the way that, you know, one person can look at it and another person can look at it completely different. I agree with what you're saying, and the difficulty is, and I suppose the other side of that coin that you're talking about is that it is very dark within that episode, is that it is a slow burn. It's designed to be a slow burn throughout the series. But of course the problem with that is if you can't get people to go back and watch episode 2, it doesn't matter how good your series is, because they ain't going to see it, are they? That's the difficulty.
That's the risk. But that's where I say that, well, that's star power, isn't it? That you can dare to do that.
Yeah.
You're almost daring the audience to go, oh, I heard a thing. I'll just very quickly tell an anecdote. I heard recently that, I can't even remember who was telling me, come back to me in a minute, but Steve Martin in his early days as a stand-up, such an electrifying performer that when he was doing shows as a solo artist, so he started to make a name for himself, so he was enough of a draw to have a one-man show. 20 minutes into his act, when they were eating out of his hand, the audience just falling about laughing, he deliberately upset things and offend the audience, and it was a challenge to himself to then see if he could turn it round again.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean that is dicing with death as a performer, isn't it?
I remember, I think it was my brother told me about Norman Lovett, the actor and comedian. I think he used to do probably maybe something similar, where, you know, just to spice things up, he'd go on, he wouldn't say anything for the first 5 minutes or 6 or 7 minutes. He just wouldn't say anything. You know, he'd just be like looking at the audience and feeding off their reaction, and you just kind of think, well, you've got to have some nerve to do something like that, haven't you?
You've got
really?
to have huge nerve, yeah.
You know, but it was somebody saying the other day to Les Dawson. They used to say to Les Dawson, and he'd say, "Oh, I got paid off again." You know, he said, "Yeah, they don't, because they're not coming to see you yet." He said, "When they know you and they come to see you, then they'll get you." But only when they know you will they be able to understand you. And I mean, that is, you're right. I mean, Ricky Gervais is trading on this huge body of work that he's done so far. The interesting thing is the fans love this. I mean, Ricky Gervais fans love this. I mean, I think it's the single most thing that he tweets about in terms of his own work, the most.
More than extras, even.
Yeah, I think it really resonates with people, because, you know, the majority of us, unfortunately, have had loss to some greater or lesser extent. And so there is an ultimate connection there with an awful lot of people, and for good or for ill, that connection is there. And I think it makes people think, yeah, what if I'd have behaved like that? I clipped it out. It's because we only kind of do about a minute of each clip, and I didn't know. That's why I mentioned about the second clip. I didn't know whether I'd left it in or not. But he goes on to say that this brutal honesty, this newfound not caring less about what anybody thinks or what he does or whether he lives or dies or whether he eats or he doesn't, he refers to it. He said it's like a superpower.
Yeah. That's quite a key line there, I think.
And I just think...
That is a brilliant way of seeing it.
I just think the whole premise is so clever that... And I haven't seen all of it, so I don't really know which direction it goes, but you know that it can go off in so many different directions in terms of where you go from here. And that's what I like about it, because I think it is a real... It is a real multifaceted... concept for a comedy. But I'm with you. I think you're right. I think maybe there was too much darkness, but perhaps he did that on purpose to say, look, I'm Ricky Gervais and I can do what I like.
Don't think he cares an awful lot. That's certainly what I as an individual think.
No,
it's not going to keep him awake at night, is it?
Anyway, sorry, you're right. Time for Scores on the Doors. Miss Ford, what do you fancy? You went first last time, didn't you? Do you want me to go?
Yeah, after you then.
I'm gonna go. I've got a really strange relationship with this because I loved it. I really did like it, but I find it really difficult to watch, and for that reason, I'd give it a 4.5.
So you would make it 5
if I could watch.
You hadn't had to rough.
If I could watch the damn thing, yeah. Yeah. Oh, honestly, I
was duly wrong-footed, as indeed, of course, you wanted me to be by that. I'm torn between 2.5 for this episode particularly, but with a suspicion that over time, if I ever got round to watching more episodes, it would creep closer to 3.
Love it. Anyway, so that's 7 out of 10 for Afterlife then. Anyway, what you got for us next week, sweetie?
I think you're not going to like this. Not a lot, not at all. But I'm going to risk it anyway.
Go on.
Having laid the ground so beautifully and oversold it. But we're going to get the old grey matter going. I keep finding myself listening to this almost by accident, but a happy accident, switching on the radio. So we're going to the wireless waves. And I am laying on the Slab of Comedy, the New Forest Festival of Stoic Philosophy, which is quite a mouthful, I know. And that is only the episode title. It's part of the series Rob Newman's Half Full Philosophy Hour, and that is your homework. I hope you don't get too much of a headache with it.
So if you've enjoyed the Comedy Slab podcast, then please do peruse our back catalogue. Matron. Because there's plenty to have a look at, as I say, 118 previous episodes. I'll just ignore him. 180, everybody else does. 118 previous episodes to have a look at.
And do follow us on @ComedySlab. That is our Twitter handle. And I don't know if you've seen it with my nudge in the week, Shane, but I've linked.
I didn't see your nudge in the week. No, I didn't.
And I would invite everyone to have a little look at my nudge.
If I don't see your nudge in the week, I'll see it through the window.
You will not, otherwise I'll report you and get an exclusion order on you. But I've linked to something, forgive me, it went out years ago, as did my brain cells, but I hadn't seen Alan Partridge appearing as Alan Partridge, promoting I, Alan, on the Rossi show of all things, but just storming it. And I've linked to it on Twitter. I've retweeted to it. So that's just one of many reasons to follow us @ComedySlab. And that is it, appropriately. We are out of time. Thanks for listening. Have a good week. Till we next speak. Bye-bye.